Now coming to ECG and potassium. So potassium disturbances, as we saw, be it hypo or hyperkalemia, can result in arrhythmias and therefore can cause a lot of important ECG changes. It is very important that we recognize these ECG changes because it's going to take a longer time for blood sample potassium to come back, whereas it's going to take a shorter time for us to actually pick up these potassium disturbances from the ECG. So A, we should be very familiar with the ECG changes in both hypo and hyperkalemia. B, it is very important that we pick up these ECG changes because the moment ECG changes occur, that means we will have to promptly correct these patients. So it is going to be helpful not only to diagnose patients but also to promptly manage patients with hypo or hyperkalemia. Now coming to the changes. So as you can see, as I've listed out, potassium can cause changes across the ECG, across all the elements of ECG, be it the waves or intervals. So when we look at the P wave, in hypokalemia, the P wave is generally going to be of increased amplitude, whereas in hyperkalemia, the P wave is usually lost. So remember, in hypokalemia, and when we say hypokalemia, I'm generally referring to a potassium of less than 2.7. That is when the ECG changes begin. Similarly, hyperkalemia, ECG changes generally occur after 5.5, occur beyond a value of 5.5, and the ECG changes become worse and more myriad as the level increases. We'll come to that shortly. Basically, remember that the P wave is going to be inversely proportional to the potassium. So basically, if there is very less potassium, the P wave is going to be nice and prominent. If there is very high amount of potassium, then there is going to be hardly any P wave. So remember, P wave is going to be inversely proportional to the potassium. Hypokalemia is going to result in a tall P wave. Hyperkalemia is going to result in loss of P waves, and this generally occurs when the potassium level is above 6.5. PR interval prolongation is seen in both hypo and hyperkalemia. Coming to QRS, QRS is generally normal in hypokalemia, whereas QRS is usually wide in hyperkalemia, and this again is seen when the potassium level increases above 7. The QT interval is prolonged in both hypo and hyperkalemia. So we've seen two intervals so far, the PR interval and the QT interval. Both are prolonged in both hypo and hyperkalemia. Coming to the ST segment depression is something that is seen in both hypo and hyperkalemia. T wave again is going to be very different in hypo and hyperkalemia. T wave is going to function the opposite of P wave. So T wave is directly proportional to the potassium. So what happens when there is very less potassium? T wave is going to be flat. What happens when there is very high potassium? Then the T wave is going to be tall and tented and nicely peaked. So as you're able to see, when the potassium increases above 5.5, the T waves become tall and peak. As the potassium increases to above 6.5, the P waves are going to be lost. As the potassium increases further and becomes more than 7, the QRS also becomes wider. And finally, when the potassium is going to be more than 8, the patient starts developing new waves, which are sine waves. So remember, tall T, potassium more than 5.5. Loss of P, potassium more than 6. QRS wide, potassium more than 7. And sine wave, potassium more than 8. So the ECG changes also help us to roughly have an idea, an estimate of what level of potassium the patient could be actually having. Now, just like how sine wave is seen in patients with hyperkalemia, sine wave is something like this. You can hardly see these P, QRS, T waves. You just have an upstroke like this. You will have the ECG which looks like this. This is a sine wave. So in hypokalemia as well, you have a new wave, which is the U wave. U wave is basically the first positive deflection which follows the T wave. This U wave is going to be more prominent in leads V2 and V3. Both hypo and hyperkalemia are associated with a lot of supraventricular arrhythmias like SVT, atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter also causes ventricular arrhythmias, and hyperkalemia significantly causes idioventricular rhythm, sinus bradycardia, and ventricular arrhythmias like VT and PF. Now, having understood all of this, so remember all the intervals, the PR and the QT interval are prolonged in both hypo and hyperkalemia. That is point number 1. Point number 2, the ST depression. That is again going to be occurring in both hypo and hyperkalemia. So as far as intervals and segments are concerned, the changes are uniform in both hypo and hyperkalemia. Only the waves are going to sort of act in a different manner in each of them. So P waves are inversely proportional to potassium. So higher the potassium, the P wave is hardly there, it is lost. Lower the potassium, you have a nice tall P wave. Opposite is true for T wave. T wave is directly proportional to the potassium. So higher the potassium, a tall T wave, lower the potassium, flat T wave. What else was there? We saw that QRS wave as such is generally normal in hypo, whereas it becomes wider in hyper. So these are the main changes that you should remember, and the new waves or the unique named waves. So in hypo you have a U wave, and in hyper you have a sine wave. Now based on everything that I've just said, can you tell me, if I tell you that the first picture is actually normal, can you tell me what this second picture is and what the third picture is? So in the second picture, the P wave is peaked, the T wave is shallow, and there is a U wave. So remember, the P wave being tall means P wave is a lot. So potassium should be very less. It is inversely proportional to potassium. T wave is directly proportional. Very less T, very less potassium. And U wave is seen in hypokalemia. So the first ECG is that of a hypokalemic patient. The second ECG, here you're able to see a tall peaked T wave. So higher the T wave, higher the potassium. So, and similarly here you're hardly able to see any P wave. So this kind of a picture is seen in patients with hyperkalemia.